Hey everyone, in this video we're going to talk about how to find the derivative of an inverse function. And in order to do this, we're going to use the identity that we should already know from Algebra 2 or pre-calculus, where we know that if we take a composition of a function and its inverse, it should just equal the independent variable x. So we see here f of the inverse of f of x should just equal x. And it doesn't matter which way I take the composition, whether I do f on the outside or f inverse on the outside, it's still going to be the same value x. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the derivative of both sides of this function. And as we do, the derivative of the right side is easy. That just comes out to be 1. And on the left side, we clearly see that we're going to have to use the chain rule. So we have our outside function f and our inside function inverse of f. And if we do the chain rule, it's just going to be the derivative of the outside times the derivative of the inside. So as we apply that, we get f prime of the inverse of f of x times the derivative of the inverse of f of x. So really all I'm trying to do now is to solve for this piece right here, and that will give me a formula or a function that I can use to find the derivative of the inverse. So simply we're just going to divide both sides by the inverse, or by the derivative of f of the inverse of f, and we get this here. We're just going to get 1 over f prime at the inverse of f of x. So really what we found out here by going through these steps is that the derivative of the inverse is the reciprocal of the derivative of the original function, but it's evaluated at the point f inverse of x rather than the point x. Okay, so let's look at an example as to what that actually means. So let's say that we have some function f, and we know that the point 38, f of 3 equals 8, so the point 38 is on my graph. And at the point 38, when x equals 3, I know my slope is 4, so it's going to give me that f prime of 3 is equal to 4. Well, this tells me a couple of things. So first it tells me that if I have the point 38 on the graph of f, I know that because we simply switch domain and range when we find the inverse, that I know the point 83 is going to be on the inverse of f. And so when I take my derivative, I'm going to be using x equals 8, right? Because that would have been the value of the inverse, not the value of my actual function. So when we take this inverse and we actually apply the rule we have over here in the red rectangle, we know that the derivative of the inverse of f is equal to 1 over f prime of the inverse of f at 8. And I know that the inverse of f at 8 is simply going to be 3, right? It's just this point here reversed. So that's going to equal 1 over f prime of 3. And I know that f prime of 3 was just equal to 4. That was given to me. So that this really just comes out to be 1/4. So that the derivative of the inverse of this function at x equals 8 is simply going to be 1/4. So really the kind of relationship we see here is that if I have the point 38 and I know the slope at 3, well, I know that the slope of my inverse at 8 is going to be the reciprocal of the slope at 3. Okay, so I hope this kind of helps show the relationship a little bit between the derivative of a function and the derivative of the inverse. And if you have any questions, hopefully I've answered them. But otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.